On the last day of kindergarten, all the children brought presents for their teacher. The florist's son handed the teacher a gift. She shook it, held it up, and said, I bet I know what it is. It's some flowers. That's right, shouted the little boy. Then the candy store owner's daughter handed the teacher a gift. She held it up, shook it, and said, I bet I know what it is. It's a box of candy. That's right, shouted the little girl. The next gift was from the liquor store owner's son, little Johnny. The teacher held it up and saw that it was leaking. She touched a drop with her finger and tasted it. Is it wine? She asked. No, said little Johnny. The teacher touched another drop to her tongue. Is it juice? She asked. No, he answered. Finally, the teacher said, I give up. What is it? A puppy. Two college students accidentally missed the math final exam. The next day, they both went to plead with their professor. He was feeling pretty good that day, so he allowed them to retake it. He told them to both come back tomorrow for an oral exam. When they both showed up, he told one of them to wait outside while he tests the other. So one enters, and the other puts his ear to the door to listen. The professor begins asking the question, You are riding in a train car and you get too hot. What do you do? The student replies, I open the window. Okay. Now that window is 2 feet wide and 3 feet high. The train is traveling 50 miles per hour going north, and the wind is blowing at 15 miles per hour due east. How long will it take for new air to replace the old air in the car? The student is clearly confused at this difficult question and just answers, I don't know. So the professor gives him an F, dismisses him, and calls in his friend. He begins asking his friend, You are riding in a train car and it gets too hot. What do you do? He says, I will take my jacket off. Okay, but it's still too hot. What do you do? I take my shirt off. I understand, but it's very, very hot. I will just get naked. Okay, but there are people in the car who will see you get naked. With all respect, Professor, said the student, I don't care if my grandmother and my priest are there. There's no way I'm opening that darn window. A widower on his retirement purchased a house situated near a high school. He spent the first few weeks of his retirement in peace. Then the new school year began. One afternoon early into the first semester, 3 young boys came down the street, beating merrily on every bin they passed. They did this the following day, and the days after that, for a week, until the man decided it was time to take some action. The next afternoon, he walked out to meet the boys as they banged their way down the street. Stopping them, he said, You kids are a lot of fun. In fact, I used to do the same thing when I was your age. Would you do me a favor? I would give you each $1 if you promised to come around and do your thing. The boys were more than happy to accept this and continued to bang the bins. After a few days, the man came out to meet them with a sad smile and said, This recession really is putting a dent in my income. From now on, I will pay you each 50 cents to continue. The boys were unimpressed by this, but continued to do the same afternoon activities. A few days later, the man approached them again and said, Look, the recession has again reduced my income. So from now on, I'm afraid I can only pay you 25 cents each. The leader then exclaims angrily, That's it? If you really think we are going to waste our time banging the bins for 25 cents each, you must be a fool. No way that's going to happen. We quit. The man then enjoyed peace and serenity for the rest of his days. One November afternoon when my daughter was in kindergarten, I picked her up after school. She bobbed out to the car and crawled into the back seat. What did you do in a day? I asked. She couldn't wait to tell me. We learned that boys are different from girls, she chirped. Looking into the rearview mirror, I could just see the top of her head. My teacher told us that boys have a thing and girls don't, she added. Well, yes, they do, I said cautiously. I couldn't think of anything else to say, so we were quiet for a moment. Then she piped up again. That's how girls know that boys are boys, she said. They see that thing that hangs down and they know that he is a boy. I mentally calculated the distance home. Our 5-minute commute already felt like an hour. Did you know that when the boys see a girl, they puff up? She asked. My palms were beginning to sweat. Well, I was still searching for something new to say, to change the subject when she asked, Why do the girls like the boys to have those things? Well, I didn't know what to say. I mean, what woman hasn't asked herself that question at least once? Oh, well, I stammered. She didn't wait for my answer. She had her own. It's 'cause it moves when they walk, and then the girls see that. And that's when they know they are boys, and that's when they like them. Then the boy sees the girl and he puffs up. And then the girl knows he likes her too. And then they get married, and then they get cooked. That last part confused me a bit, but on the whole, I thought she had a pretty good grasp on things. As soon as we got home and I pulled into the garage, she hopped out of the car, fishing something out of her school bag. I drew a picture, she said. Do you want to see? I wasn't sure I did, but I looked at it anyway. I had to sit down. There, all puffed up, so to speak, looking mighty attractive for the ladies, was a crayon drawing of a great big tom turkey. His snood, the thing that hangs down over his beak, the thing that female turkeys find so irresistible, was magnificent. His tail feathers were standing tall and proud. She was a little offended that I laughed so hard at her drawing, and I laughed until I cried. But when I told her I loved it, and I did, she got over her pique. That was the end of that, for her anyway. But I'm not so lucky. Every year I remember that conversation, and to be honest, I haven't looked at a turkey or a man the same way since. A little 12-year-old girl was walking home when a big man on a black motorcycle pulled up beside her. After following along for a while, the rider turns to her and asks, "Hey there, little girl," and winks. "Do you want to go for a ride?" "No," says the little girl as she keeps on walking. The motorcyclist again pulls up beside her and asks, "Come on now. I will give you $10 if you hop on the back." "No," says the little girl again as she hurries down the street. The motorcyclist pulls up beside the little girl again and says, "Okay, last offer. I'll give you $20 and a big bag of candy if you just hop on the back of my bike." Finally, the little girl stops and turns towards him and says, pointedly, "Look, Dad, you're the one who bought the Honda instead of the Harley. You ride it." Three youngsters were in the midst of a spirited debate to determine who had the swiftest dad. "My dad is the fastest," Anya exclaimed excitedly. "He's a builder and can chuck a brick off the 5th floor, race down the stairs, and catch it before it even hits the ground." "That's nothing," Brad boasted. "My dad is much faster. He's a professional archer and can target an arrow at a wolf's head, fire it, and then run and grab the creature before the arrow even lands." "Incredible!" exclaimed Tommy. "But I think my father is way faster." "What makes you say that?" asked Anya and Brad curiously. "My father has been working at the DMV for 20 years, Tommy answered. "He's expected to be off work at 5 p.m., but he's so speedy he's home by 1,